Ladies and gentlemen in the audience, listeners of all kinds, watchers, YouTubers out there, this is the 9th episode of the Recap Second Helpings show for Too Complicated for History. We had Victoria E. Bynum on the episode talking about her book, The Free State of Jones, the original. Don't get the one that was based off of the movie.
Never get the one based off the
Never.
movie.
Yeah.
Watch the movie based off the book.
Correct.
But make sure you have the book that the movie's based off
Right.
of.
Right. Read the book, then watch the movie. Come to your own conclusions about the film, but don't do it the other way around. Actually, there's a reason why I'm approaching it this way, because this is the area of conversation that I really want to talk about. When people watch the movie, Victoria said, Dr. Bynum said that they watch the movie, it's sensationalized. There are some areas she would have changed, although even though in the end she really liked it and she got along with the director really well and all that. But then they go and read her book and they're like, oh, it's boring. It's not the movie and all that kind of stuff. So it got me thinking, what is it about Hollywood, filmmakers, people that are converting historical things into entertainment, that they feel that they have to throw historical accuracy out the window? I don't mean all in all. Hey, we'll try to keep it as historically accurate as possible, but there's some areas we're going to have to take some artistic license. Why? What is that artistic license? Well, and let me rant here for a second, and I'm going to hand it over to you guys. That artistic license is sometimes, we need a certain, development to happen here, or we need some drama in this moment, or we need to create something that's a little bit more thematically in the archetype of this script that maybe history doesn't automatically yield in this moment, and so we need to force it in that moment. And then I was thinking, but when we approach history, it does have that. It's got all those things. There's plenty of story and drama. And I realized this. Please correct me if I'm wrong. But it's because so few historians, and I've said this before, are unwilling to comment on the emotional state of people who write these letters. And this is how we're learning about history, right? Through letters, not video recordings or audio recordings, especially of the 18th century. Or even parts of the 19th century that we're like, oh, I got to fill in the blank here with some characterization, which, by the way, could have been historically accurate. Or if you had dug a little deeper or were willing to take that extra step, you might find out that it does offer that. That's upsetting. I want this episode to be about having a conversation about how filmmakers are either too lazy in some cases, or unwilling, or that there's not enough historical references to the emotional state of characters so that we feel as filmmakers that we have to deviate from history and go.
Oh, I'll start.
Yeah, why don't we start with you, Lynn? Goodness gracious.
They need to hire historians, first of all. And because it's a lot more work to be historically accurate. I think you both can now agree that being historically accurate is a lot of work and costs more money. So we just set that aside. If you're going to not have a historian, which you shouldn't have to read into emotions in letters, because the way you're describing it is if you read one or two letters and then you read the emotion into it. But the real thing to do, which you'll also both understand, is you've both now worked on George Washington for how many years? You feel like you get to know him and you get to know his responses to certain things and what upsets him and, what makes him happy. Like you start to understand him like a person or like a friend. And so then from that, you can get a good idea of what his response might have been. But filmmakers can't go and study each individual as this individual human, so they get to the point that they know them all so well that they can sort of read into what they think their actions would be, which is why they need to hire historians like myself who already know all of that and
number on the bottom of the screen.
Who know all of that and can just say, okay, look, this would have been, his most likely reaction. At least then it's closer. And I think you're one of the, when I started with you and you're like, I don't know anything about history, which you're not allowed to say anymore. I remember you saying, why does Hollywood make things up when the truth is so much more interesting? Which was always our point, always the point of historians, but because it's more work. And I don't think it's necessarily that y'all are lazy, y'all being like directors and producers, is that's not your job. Your job isn't to become historians and filmmakers, which is why you need that extra. You need consultants. You need people who can help you make it historically accurate. And I think that a lot, I mean, not to, upset anyone, but they probably don't care enough to make it entirely historically accurate, because that's not going to make you more money. It's like the big explosions and like the, stuff like that is going to make a movie more popular, in my opinion.
Yeah. So two things. One, it's Friday. I wore a Hawaiian shirt. I thought it was going to be a nice casual conversation. And second, I did not expect to be the one potentially defending the film industry in this particular argument. However, I feel I have to, in some ways, and in other ways I don't really care. But I think I look, yes, all of the things I agree. There's a lot of shortcuts, and like the systemic issues in the Hollywood industry and like how big blockbuster movies get made, presented, all of that. I mean, that's a documentary, The History of Hollywood, coming out in 2028, brought to you by Primary Source Media. But I think part of it is, right, I think that we have two different objectives, I think, as two separate entities, because there are plenty, not to say that Hollywood doesn't take the shortcuts, and that, yes, please, 1-800 Dr. Lynn Price Robbins every time you have a movie coming out. But also, not every historian is there to entertain, right? Mm-hmm. And so there is a huge gap in discussion, because, we've read books on the various proteins that people are eating for dinner, and like that is not a compelling story. Like that's not, yes, I'll watch Food Network, but you know what? Most of the people that watch Food Network are watching like Hell's Kitchen or, Last Chef Standing or, Bloodbath Chef Survivor. And
I'd watch that.
There's always, some drama built in. I guess the Great British Break Off is like the one where it's like everyone gets along and everyone's happy.
That's why they lost the war.
Yeah.
Oh, jeez.
Pew, pew. Man, it's a fun episode today. So I think, look, I agree completely that it's frustrating that these shortcuts get taken. I do think it's, partially for budget, and as someone that's had to manage budgets and, manage this type of thing in a massive way and on a large scale, like the cost is insane. So it's like, I don't necessarily want to deprive people of these stories. I just can't necessarily afford to match it every time. Now, I think that there's plenty of instances where there is the ability to match and just chosen not to for laziness. And, we are trying as a company definitely to kind of fill that void and be the middleman there. So I just want to say, Hollywood's trying to entertain. Mm-hmm. Historians are trying to tell the truth or tell the full story. And those are two different objectives. If you're writing, entertaining history, I mean, look, as part of history, you need to know who family trees are, right? Like you need to know the lineage. You need to know the context of the time. You need to know where they lived, where they grew up. Sure, you might need to know that if you're a writer for a Hollywood film, but you have 90 minutes, right. 2 hours, 8 hours, all right, let's go crazy. Like a 10 or 12 episode hour-long series on HBO at absolute best to tell an entire lifetime in a dramatic story. So look, you have to make cuts. You can't tell the full story. And frankly, it's not like we're seeing, when people just eat dinner or, or like go get their oil changed, or, are repairing a wheel on a wagon, or buying, goods every time they do it. And so there's two different processes,
You
right?
just
So like
described reality TV, though. Let's be honest.
well, I have not watched any reality TV in so long. The bane of my existence. The historical documents. We just watched Galaxy Quest this past weekend, and the aliens think that the show is the historical documents. So anyway, that is it. I don't want to defend Hollywood anymore because, whatever. But goodness gracious, you guys coming in hot on a Friday. I'm going to have a sip of coffee.
Well, and you can't footnote. I mean, you can't footnote a movie. Right. So that makes it different. Well, you can't stop and cite a letter. I mean, if you're doing a docuseries, you can, perhaps. But if you're doing a Hollywood movie, you're not going to have a citation.
I presented this question or conversation, but I didn't really define my particular vision. And I think going through it, obviously our company is, primary source media is devoted to historical accuracy. And I do think that that's a niche market because I believe that if I were producing a larger budget film, let's just say it wasn't really about money, but it is about margins. There is a certain point where going more historically accurate isn't going to make as a difference. And It's not. We say the word lazy. I don't think it's laziness. We're like, I could look this up. I'm not going to look this up. I'm just going to drink another beer. It's not. It's not that.
I definitely think there are plenty of instances where it is that.
Hey, look, maybe it is. I'm not in the room when writers are writing these things, but I have been on movies where it's like, we could do that, but is doing that going to make a better product, or is putting in this extra $1 million really going to earn profits?
See, it goes down to money. It's not. It doesn't equal what you're going to gain. You're not going to make more money
or make a better movie,
though. Well, I mean,
is putting that in going to make a better movie? So maybe it's not even about
who's defining
money.
Better though. For a historian, yes. For the general public, probably not.
Opinion is subjective.
Well, you know what? That I think is probably the conclusion of this debate, because it really is that, right? Opinion is subjective. Sure. Historians are going to argue for the history. Sensationalized filmmakers are going to argue for making the best entertainment. There are people in between. There are definitely movies that did it better than others. And it really just depends on who the filmmaker is. I mean, I don't know any off the top of my head because I don't know every director that ever existed.
I have a great example of a movie that is tremendously historically inaccurate, and I enjoy it thoroughly.
Sharknado?
Well,
you're wrong. That is historically accurate.
Despite that being my second favorite movie of all time. It is not. A Knight's Tale with Heath Ledger, R.I.P. That movie is preposterously inaccurate. I mean, she literally the armor, chisels in a Nike symbol. They're singing Queen, in the opening scene, but it's fun and entertaining. Is the armor all right? Are the is what they're using to fight with, absolutely correct? No. I think it's just it depends on how it's presented. I think that's what it comes down to, because good or not, like, there are let's just, if we're combining everything together, there's a million impossibly incredible stories in history, and they're better than a lot of written history, stories. But how you present these things, like, are they based on a fact? Are they a true story? Or like, are you presenting it as truth?
Exactly.
Right. Not to point out anything, but there's some documentaries that came out recently, not to age this, that are really historically inaccurate and presenting themselves as such. And that to me is like ethically wrong. And, like that is, I think that's kind of what it comes down to, is the intention. But also Lynn is totally right in that, like, for her and Bo to see like historically accurate fashion in a show, like that's really exciting for them. And like that, I'm saying for them because for me, it's not even something I even see.
Well, do you mind if I'm going to complicate this even more? I know I feel
don't
like
make it too complicated.
Too complicated?
I want to make it
history.
Us? You thought, yeah, see?
Yeah, you went there. Okay. We have these conversations about history because we're in this world? Why don't we have these conversations about the science in movies? What about a movie that takes place in the future and it has this?
I'm going to stop you right now.
Hold on.
My wife literally every movie that has any space, she's like, what gobbledygook and garbage. To quote Rick and Morty, you can't just name a car part and attach a space word and it makes sense. Let's go check the microverse battery. And my wife is usually like, yeah, that's just what they did, right, in that story.
Yep.
So
right.
The scientist does take notice and does comment. So anyway, you continue.
And the doctor, I have a doctor in my family, and you go and you watch a show like House, and he goes, that's not a real thing. But what I was going to say is there are some things that are unknowable.
Mm-hmm.
If something takes place in 200 years from now, 200 years in the future, and they've got a flying car, you can't say, that's not possible. Well, because it's 200 years in the future. We don't know what's going to happen between now and then. It's an unknowable thing. So I suppose in the end, when we're talking about history, if it's something that's knowable, know it. And if it's something that's not knowable, entertain with it. That would be my conclusion based on.
I think that's fair for filmmakers, as long as they use terms like based on. Based on this story, as opposed to saying this is accurate. Whereas for historians, we would have to discuss all of the possible options instead of saying, I'm just going to guess it's this. But for us, it's, well, we think it's this, and here's the evidence of why. But I mean, as far as films go, as long as they just say based on a true story, to me, they're not claiming to be historically accurate. I mean, some are egregious. But to me, it's documentaries.
I think you're giving the benefit of the doubt there.
Well, documentaries are much more offensive to me than
because by their very
movies.
Nature,
they claim they're claiming by making themselves a documentary to be accurate in some way, usually in ways that they can't live up to or don't live up to.
And those are supposed to be objective pieces in theory or more regularly, because a lot of documentary filmmakers bring their own POV, but by just making a documentary, they have a subjective point of view and how they're presenting so there is no true objective,
just like there's no true history, because we all have perspectives.
Very well said. Now in the interest of time and our audience, I want to say please read The Free State of Jones by Dr. Victoria E. Bynum before watching the movie. In fact, don't even watch the movie. Go read the book.
So hold on. I do want to say one thing, though, because she says something else, which is the popular history is important for history, right? Because it presents things in a more palatable way.
Absolutely.
What we're saying is don't read the book based on the movie, which is essentially just a parrot of the script. Go learn the history after. If that intrigues you, look deeper. And so to sum it all up, I think what we were originally kind of getting at, and maybe not even stated, which is there is a place for popular history and entertaining history, even if it is a little liberal with its decisions and creative choices, right?
But hopefully it will make somebody want to study the primary sources
to take the next step.
And also bear in mind, and she says this too, which is the book she published was academic in nature and was never meant to necessarily be a popular history. So maybe we start the petition, and I'll send this to Dr. Bynum after, but maybe we start the petition for a slightly easier, more layman. Oh, there's a cat.
Yes,
coming to pounce on your head.
And he's the guest for the next podcast we're doing.
Oh yeah.
After this, yeah,
exactly. maybe it's like we ask historians to make more layman or slightly more streamlined history books following, let's say a pop culture phenomenon where it's like, oh, we love this movie, we want to know more, but also I'm not an academic, so reading your academic book is going to be a lot harder for me, to do.
Well,
so.
And by the way, on that very note, if you've ever read in film school any of the books written about films that are academic, they are impossible. I feel like it's like, what's a more like they're going through the thesaurus and like, how can I make this word less appealing? And they do that for every word. It is so esoteric.
I've read those books.
Oh my God.
Not on that topic, but I've read those books.
Yeah, but that is to say that even academic books on entertainment are
not entertaining.
Are not entertaining. Yeah, they're educational. And that isn't to say that education can't be fun, but that herein lies the ability for us all to exist.
Right. It's sort of
help one another
who your
out.
audience, knowing your audience. And most academic books are having conversations with other academics in their academic books. Right. But then you need to take that and make it palatable for the public who needs their education, who, wants to learn about these things and see how interesting they are. And you're not going to get it from, a 300-page book about this one county in 1620, so it's like they want more something you can relate to. So we need more public historians or even academics who are willing to engage with the broader public versus that academic back and forth that of course has to go on because they're usually the ones that find the information that can then become the stories. They're the ones who are discovering these new stories. And then it needs to go from sort of the academic sphere to a more understandable, broader ranging story.
Yeah, and if it wasn't for them, we wouldn't exist. So with that in mind, I will say, in fact, Minnie.
The aliens?
Who
dropped us off?
Minnie, why don't you tell them the name of the book? Free State of Jones!
Is that Minnie Mouse?
No.
Because it sure sounded like Minnie Mouse.
Oh, boy! Oh.
You're getting sued.
Don't copyright this, Disney! Oh.
Disney just took us down. They just canceled us. I haven't even published it. We are down.
I'm Millie the Mouse.
It was nice knowing y'all.
Not Mickey. Oh. All right, listen.
I'm going to have to bleep those.
Don't you dare.
No.
All right. Please check out Free State of Jones wherever you buy books. Victoria E. Bynum. And please listen to the episode, Too Complicated for History, episode 9 with Victoria E. Bynum. It's fantastic. Wherever you get podcasts, check it out on Audible, Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon, wherever you get your music. Thank you. Bye.
Yeah. Actually, and I'm going to make one little announcement here. This might be the last time we see Jordan on a recap show for the next few episodes because someone is going on paternity leave very soon.
As of this recording, we are 4 days before the due date. So you could come at any moment.
So if we get another one, if we can sneak another one in, we will. But otherwise, Jordan, we wish you well in your endeavors. And we will see you when you get back, buddy.
Thank you so much. Photos. And hey, maybe I'll try to do one. And if we do one and my hair is all messed up and I can barely,
as long as you're holding the baby, no, even if she's screaming, you can do it.
I will.
Yeah.
We're going to cut now.
and
bye all.
Thank you. Bye.